Hey everybody, it's me, Derek DC Phillips, bringing you all things frightful. And today I wanted to share some thoughts with you on the Halloween franchise. Now, no one has asked me for my thoughts, but I am generously giving them to you anyway. In all seriousness, I am a diehard fan of the Halloween franchise. I saw the original 1978 Halloween movie when I was probably 11 or 12 years old after bugging my parents relentlessly to let me rent it. And you know what? It made me a fan for life. Within the series, I have my favorites, my not so favorites, and I have a couple that I don't really recognize 100%. I'm sure you all are the same. I will say Resurrection was the first I saw in theaters, so for that reason alone, it will always hold a special place in my heart. That's why I wanted to take some time to really reflect after I saw an early showing of Halloween Ends, because for some kid out there, Halloween Ends was probably the first and maybe the only Halloween viewing experience they have had or will have in a theater. So I don't want to be one of those toxic fans who are just going to be unhappy with whatever we get and nitpick it apart and talk about the eye holes in the mask. No, I don't want to do that, but I do want to share my 2 cents on some feelings I have about recent developments. I gave the 2018 reboot and subsequently Halloween Kills chances to see what they were all about, where they went, how they would fit together. Even from that 2018 movie, I wasn't quite sold on the concept of renaming it Halloween. That was sort of my first gripe, I will say straight out the gate. But I'm willing to entertain these new directions that the creative team wanted to take. Fast forward to a weekend ago, and the first part of Halloween Ends, I found myself enjoying. I really thought that opening scene was a shock to the system. The Halloween 3 reminiscent opening titles told us that we were going to get something different. The character development was there. I actually kind of like what they did with the Corey character. I wanted to see where that story went and how it unfolded. I anticipated a little bit more mystery and build up, but the further we got into the movie, I, like so many of you, wondered, where is Michael? I know a lot of people are praising the fact that they tried something different, but that's not what fans really wanted. Again, this video is not specifically about Halloween Ends. It's more about the franchise as a whole and just some thoughts on fans and our relationship with the team behind the Halloween franchise. I think the Akkad family has always been sort of conservative in terms of playing it safe. After the shock of Halloween 3, they really wanted to make sure Michael was front and center, which is what we got for a long time. However, John Carpenter has always been a bit disdainful of what came after his original Halloween masterpiece in 1978, as has Jamie Lee Curtis. Anytime they're on tour, promoting films, doing the press junket, Jamie Lee Curtis in particular has been very adamant in her love for the project she's doing at any given time, but she's sort of become notorious for a few years later then acting like that movie was the worst thing she's ever been in her life, and she can't believe that she signed up to be in it. Having said that, allegedly, the whole point of rebooting was to get rid of those silly sequels and the pesky plot holes that they presented and follow up with John Carpenter's original vision. But there are a couple of problems with that. Number one, John Carpenter has stated he didn't have a vision. He didn't really see anything past the first movie, which, again, is a masterpiece. It's a classic. And he was sort of forced into writing that second film, came up with the sister angle sort of on a whim, fueled by a lack of sleep and beer. But the problem with that is that we, the fans, wanted more. We wanted to see where Michael could go. We wanted to see where this story could take us. without things being necessarily over-explained, which again, later sequels may have tried to do. And through the process, we fans came to love those silly sequels. So when this reboot trilogy came along and the creative team, the powers that be, decided to undo all of that and then give us movies that were riddled with Easter eggs and references to past sequels like the Halloween 3 masks or legacy characters popping up just to recite random lines from 1978 and to be killed, some of them for the second time in the franchise. You pretty much went and redid everything you undid. There were even hints that the more Michael killed, the more transcendent he became, and then those threads weren't really followed. So it was more of a retread, a rehashing, like so many nostalgia properties these days. I've got to tell you, I love Halloween 2, 4, H2O. I mean, that scene between Janet Leigh and Jamie Lee Curtis is incredible. It's so much fun. It knows exactly what it's doing. I was talking with a fellow fan a while back. It's just so no nonsense. And I think in H2O, Laurie's portrayal of trauma, in Jamie Lee Curtis's own words, just feels so much more realistic. She's not Rambo. She's a functional alcoholic. She's getting by, but she does still have this shadow in her past that comes back to haunt her. Now, I understand that the reboot route is probably the only way they could get Jamie Lee Curtis back under those conditions, making something different. But in the process and in focusing on the psychological impact of trauma and the family's brokenness, they tried to make the franchise something that it's just not. There was a push to get back to that original vision, but again, when there's no original vision beyond that first movie, that's not really the case. All in all, there will continue to be this tug of war over the Halloween franchise between the creative team and the fans. Over the years, I've read and got so excited about so many great treatments. I thought the one, I think it was called Halloween Returns, after Resurrection, where Michael was on death row and gets loose. It was so exciting. It was something different, but again, giving us what we expect in a Halloween movie. I've got to say, I think series like Friday the 13th have a better understanding of what the masses really want. And you can call it formulaic, you can call it overly simple or exploitative, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. With the Halloween franchise, I guess we'll just continue to reboot until we find something that lands. I think as a fan, it's safe to say, without being a Debbie Downer, I'm just confused. I'm disappointed. I know it's going to be a long time before we get what fans consider to be a true Halloween movie that respects what came before without undoing to redo. And I guess until then, we'll continue to see these think pieces pop up and these videos about how the Halloween franchise is a choose your own adventure series and there's so many different timelines, which I take issue with because from my point of view, with a slight suspension of disbelief, I see the movies following a pretty solid continuity from the original all the way through Resurrection. That might be a hot take that gets pulled from this video and it becomes controversial, but I still respect the original canon. I'm not super satisfied with anything we've really gotten since 1998, and as a fan, unfortunately, maybe it's just time to accept that. I think the series had a great run, much better than many other franchises, and will always have those solid sequels to keep us happy and to get us in the mood come October.